If you feel like you're just tired all the time, then this video is going to explain 6 underlying causes for why you could be tired. And when you hear these, they're going to make sense. You're going to be like, well, yeah, how could I have any energy if that's going on with me? So let's get you some real answers here, and let's help you find some energy so you can function like a human being. Here we go.
TC Hale is not a doctor and does not claim to be a doctor or licensed in any type of medical field. Don't be an idiot and use anything heard on the show as medical advice. This information should be used for educational purposes only, and you should contact your doctor for any medical advice. Now get off me.
Let us know in the comments how long you've been dealing with these fatigue issues, and let us know if there's any steps you've taken to create some improvement for yourself. We'd love to hear about that. But the first reason that a person can be really tired all the time that we want to talk about today is mismanaging insulin. So if you're not managing insulin correctly, you can only have a temporary fuel source. There's no way for the body to give you sustained energy if you're not handling your insulin the way that you should. So here's how it works. The body should be able to run off of both glucose and fat. Now, it's also possible to run off of ketones for some people, but that can also have its own set of troubles, and we'll talk about those in just a few minutes. But the body should be able to run off of glucose that comes from carbohydrates or sugars or even other ways that the body can make glucose. But when glucose runs out, the body should be able to run on fat. Fat is the backup fuel source. Here's the problem. When insulin goes too high, the body doesn't have the ability to access stored fat. That insulin blocks that ability. So when we eat carbohydrates that are really high carbohydrate foods, it can spike that insulin really high. So glucose can burn up in like an hour, and now you're out of that fuel source, but insulin can take a lot longer to come down. So when you're eating really starchy or high sugar or high carbohydrate or high processed junk food, it can really spike that insulin to a really high level that's going to take hours to come down. So when you burn out of that glucose, the insulin's saying, sorry about your luck, you can't access stored fat. As a matter of fact, I'm telling your body right now to store more fat. This is also why a lot of people have a hard time losing weight. But if you run out of glucose and that fuel source is gone, but your body can't access the backup fuel source, how are you going to have any energy? How are you going to have any fuel? You understand that you kind of need some fuel to create energy, right? So when people don't manage their insulin the right way, this can really be problematic when it comes to creating energy. The real trouble comes when the person runs out of glucose, so now I'm kind of wiped out, I'm falling asleep at my desk, so they go for another high carb snack and they spike insulin again. This can keep insulin high all day. It may never come down to where a person can access this backup fat fuel source. Now, where this gets even worse is if a person continues this pattern for a long time or months or years, they can become insulin resistant, where the cells are no longer going to listen to that insulin because it's kind of been yelling at them all day long. You're high and yelling at these cells all day long, there's high insulin levels, so the cell's like, hey, I don't want to hear it anymore. So now the person becomes insulin resistant and they can't process that glucose correctly. So now the insulin is high all day long because the body's pumping out even more and more insulin just to try to get the cells to listen. And now high insulin is way too high to access stored fat. But now also the cells are not responding to the glucose. So now you can't use that glucose for fuel, and now the person's in a real bad place. So to avoid this insulin being high all the time and insulin resistance and an upcoming type 2 diabetics label that might be showing up for you, we really want to adjust what we're eating. We want to adjust what we're putting on our plate and get rid of a lot of these processed junk carbohydrates and eat more what we call medium carb foods. So foods like butternut squash or yams or sweet potatoes, these are like real food. It doesn't come in a package. It comes from the ground. It's food. So we can eat more of these foods that contain the carbohydrates that'll give you some fuel, but not so many carbohydrates that it creates this huge spike in insulin levels. You may also need to cycle your carbs a little bit more into your day. Maybe you have meals that don't have a lot of high carbohydrates. Maybe you just have some protein, some fats, and some green vegetables in there. without spiking that insulin for that meal and allow the insulin to come down for part of the day so that the body can access stored fat for fuel, and also so the cells can stay receptive to this insulin and you don't become insulin resistant. We like to see people try to put their carbohydrates maybe earlier in the day, maybe before 3 o'clock, and then the rest of the day just eat proteins and green leafy vegetables. Also, if you're eating these medium carb foods that'll lift insulin levels some, it doesn't take as long for it to come back down. So by the time you burn out of glucose, your insulin is already coming down to a level where your body can access some stored fat. Now you have that backup fuel source. Now you have energy throughout the day. Now you're burning a bonfire with not just twigs, because that's what you're doing with glucose. It burns up too quickly. Now you're giving some logs on the fire where you have some sustained fuel throughout the day. Reason number 2 that energy could be low is oxygen utilization issues. We're going to get a little sciencey here, so don't freak out. But the reality is that the blood pH has a narrow parameter that it needs to stay between. And when the blood leans too far on this alkaline side, what's called the Bohr effect kicks in. We all learned about the Bohr effect in the 8th grade, and then we kind of never talked about it again. But what it says is when the blood leans too alkaline, oxygen can't leave the blood and get down to the tissues where it needs to be to use that oxygen. So the blood kind of holds the oxygen captive there in the bloodstream. The problem is we need oxygen to create energy. Kind of a big problem, right? Now the body can try to compensate this because CO2 or carbon dioxide that we exhale, that's acidic. The body can try to hold on to more CO2 by lowering the rate at which we breathe. So we're not exhaling as often, we're holding on to more CO2, which can help acidify that blood, raise the breath rate a little bit, and allow oxygen to get down to the tissues where it needs to be. So this is something that you can check yourself. You can just relax and get a little timer that has like a minute stopwatch on it that'll beep after a minute, and just count how many times you inhale in a 60-second period. Don't count inhale 1 and exhale as 2, just count the inhales. Now, if your breath rate is 12 or lower, that's an indication that your blood may be leaning too far on this alkaline side and can be creating issues for oxygen utilization. What you don't want to do is listen to the idiot pH gurus who tell you that you can look at your urine and saliva pH to get an idea of where your blood pH is. It's 100% fiction. Now there is value in looking at your urine and saliva pHs for other imbalances in the body, but it does not correlate with the pH of the blood. So we want to look at our breath rate to get a better idea of where the pH of our blood is lying and if we're leaning too far on this alkaline side. Now there's a variety of issues that can create this. But the most common problem is a lack of CO2. Remember that CO2 is acidic, but CO2 is a byproduct of processing glucose. So if a person is leaning too far on this insulin resistant side and they're not processing glucose very well, then that can lower the CO2 rate and it can make the bloodstream leaning a little bit too alkaline. So we see this a lot with type 2 diabetics where they have a really low breath rate because they're not creating the CO2 because they're not processing carbohydrates correctly. Now this could also come about if a person wasn't eating any carbohydrates. So if a person's using a ketogenic or a carnivore diet where they're really not eating a lot of carbohydrates, they're removing that problem of the insulin management. We don't get that high insulin that's going to restrict the body's ability to access this backup fuel source all day, because the person's not eating carbohydrates. So they remove that problem. But over time, and for some folks this can take years. For me it took like 5 years for me to have a trouble using a ketogenic or low carb diet. But the longer you do that, then the less CO2 you're producing and that blood can lean too far on the alkaline side and now the person's wiped out again. So that doesn't mean a ketogenic diet or a carnivore diet is wrong for everybody. It's right for a lot of people, but it's important to understand how to watch your body chemistry so you know when you might need to cycle in some carbohydrates or maybe use some supplementation to help acidify that bloodstream a little bit so that oxygen can be utilized correctly. But you can see it's really common for people to be insulin resistant today, and a lot of people are using ketogenic and carnivore type diets where they're really eating low carb. So you can see that this oxygen utilization issue can be really common. But now you know a tool. You can check your breath rate, you can monitor where you are, and then make adjustments so that you can have some energy. Now, if you need some help better understanding how to look at your body chemistry, maybe you want to dig a little further into this oxygen utilization issue, my book, Kick Your Fat in the Nuts, teaches you how to run simple self-tests at home with tools you can pick up at a pharmacy or a health food store to better understand where your body chemistry is and maybe issues that it's creating. And the book is available on Amazon, but I'm going to put a link in the description below this video where you can get the whole thing totally for free, and that'll help walk you through any of those processes. And if you hate to read, we also have a totally free digestion course that walks you through those same steps, and we'll put the link to that course in the description below too. Now, reason number 3 that a person can be wiped out all the time are digestive malfunctions. See, here's what happens. When we eat food, our body can't really do anything with that food. Your body can't do anything with a peanut butter sandwich. That peanut butter sandwich needs to be broken down into vitamins and minerals and amino acids and glucose and all these resources that the body uses to function correctly. The problem is when we eat food, our stomachs need to make enough hydrochloric acid to break that food down. And then once that food is acidified correctly, when it leaves the stomach and goes into the duodenum, which is the first 10 inches of the small intestine, then the gallbladder squirts this alkaline bile down onto the acid product that left the stomach. And when this acid product meets this alkaline bile, it creates a sizzle. It's kind of like when you mix baking soda and vinegar together. It kind of fizzles up, like when you made that stupid volcano thing in the 8th grade. Maybe that was 3rd grade. Maybe I was slow. I don't remember. But that sizzle is crucial for us to live. That's how we bust that food apart and access all the nutrients in that food. The problem is it's really common for someone not to be making enough stomach acid to really acidify that food and break it down correctly. And it's really common now for someone's bile to become too thick and sticky to flow correctly. So if either of those sides of digestion are not working correctly, you're not getting that sizzle and you're not accessing all the nutrients in that food. So that's why we eat food. That's how we're creating our fuel. That's how we're giving our body supplies for it to function. So if it doesn't have any supplies, it's going to be like, yeah, it can't function, but I could lay here on the couch for about 12 hours if you want to do that. I could go with that policy. So when you're having any type of digestive symptoms at all, anything like burping or bloating or constipation or diarrhea or acid reflux or even skin or acne issues, all of those are really strong signs that your digestion is not working correctly and you're not accessing all the nutrients in your food. So this can become a really big deal when you want to kind of function and have energy all day. Proper acid levels in the stomach does help us break down our food, but it also is like the main barrier to the body. It keeps all these varmints that are coming in on our food from coming in and setting up camp and having a keg party. So when that acid function isn't there, microorganisms come in and they set up camp, and now you have this chronic infection going on, whether it's in your digestive tract or it gets in somewhere else in your body. But a chronic infection takes a lot of energy and resources to deal with, to keep it from taking over everything. Your body has to put a lot of resources toward this. That's why when you have a cold, you're kind of tired. You don't have a lot of energy when you're sick. Even for days after you're sick, you can be tired because the body's putting a lot of resources towards getting rid of this invader and cleaning up the mess that it created. So it's really common for a person to have an undiagnosed infection for months, years, or a lifetime. Especially if it's like a yeast, mold, or fungal type infection. Those really go undiagnosed a lot. It's almost impossible to get a yeast, mold, or fungal issue diagnosed. You can go right into the doctor and you can be like, hey, I have all these issues. Can you please diagnose me with a yeast, mold, or fungal issue? And they'll be like, well, we got some antibiotics we can give you. And you can say to them, well, aren't antibiotics made out of fungus? And a lot of them will kill bacteria, but they kind of set up the system to allow fungal issues to thrive. I feel like I have a fungal issue. I don't want to make that worse. We could give you some antidepressants. Just forget it. Just no thanks. Do you have a lollipop? You still give out lollipops? I feel like I should get a lollipop. So if a person has these infections going on, all of their resources can go towards dealing with this infection. So it can be really important to understand, do I have some kind of SIBO issue? Like all the cool kids have SIBO now. They got this infection that started in their stomach and it kind of didn't get killed by the stomach acid, and so it works its way down the small intestine, and now you got all this bacteria, fungal, yeast, mold, whatever it is, that's kind of taken over the system, and a lot of resources are going towards that. So my book, Chapter 3, kind of talks about how to look at these digestive functions and figure out if there's issues going wrong. and steps you can take to correct that if you need to figure out, is this where my energy is going? Is my energy going because I'm a great host and I'm taking care of all these microorganisms in my body? That's not how you want it to be. Reason number 4 can be too much stress, and this might not be what you're thinking, but when you're stressed out, the body's going to lift cortisol and other stress hormones to kind of help the body function in what it's viewing as an emergency. It doesn't know that you're stressed because you're late to work or you forgot to do some report. It views the stress that you're experiencing as an emergency, as we need to run from a lion. So I'm going to change how the body operates so that I can operate in a manner that allows me to escape from this lion and survive. So the body's going to prioritize survival over everything else. And one thing that it can do is it can, through gluconeogenesis, it can cause the body to make more glucose, because now it has this immediate fuel source it can use for this emergency. So this immediate fuel source that it's creating is also going to spike insulin levels, and that high insulin can create a sugar crash that leaves you with no energy and also leaves you with a way that you can't access the backup fuel source because of their high insulin levels from all the glucose that the body made. So this can be a real problem. What do you want to do? You want to simmer down now. So if you have stress in your life, you want to find a way to simmer down now and reduce that stress. But here's the real kicker. Sometimes it's not stress in your life. Sometimes it's stress in your body. Like that possible infection that we just talked about, that can create a lot of stress in the body. But another stress can be a lack of resources. So if a person's digestion is not functioning correctly, they're not pulling all the minerals and resources and nutrients that they need out of the food that they're eating. And now the body doesn't have the minerals and resources it needs to function. That's going to be stressful. So that can elevate stress hormones just like actual stress in your life. That's kind of a ripoff, don't you think? But it's still problematic enough for a lot of people. So one thing you can do is you can look at your blood pressure and see, is your systolic number, which is that top number, is it lower than 112? So if it's lower than 112, that's a really strong sign that minerals and other nutrients are low in the system, and you're going to want to take steps to lift those. So we'll put a link in the description below for our video on how to lift your mineral levels. Reason number 5 is poor quality sleep. If you're not sleeping, your body's not resting. How is it going to be ready to face the next day? Have you ever not slept throughout the night? How do you feel that day? You feel wiped out. So insomniacs know. I was an insomniac for years. It's not fun. You can't function the next day. So even if you're not an insomniac, if your sleep is not quality sleep, it's going to affect you the next day and reduce the amount of energy that you have available. So there's a wide variety of reasons that a person might not be getting into a good state of sleep. There's a lot of imbalances in the body that can create this problem. So we're going to put a link in the description below for our video on steps that you can take for better sleep. So look at that video and see, okay, maybe are there issues going on that are restricting my ability to sleep? Because when you can sleep like you're supposed to sleep, it can change everything. It can really increase a lot of energy and help you function a whole lot better. And reason number 6 is adrenal fatigue. It's very common for people to be dealing with adrenal fatigue these days. And what's going on is that when the body is stressed, either because there's a stress that is present or maybe resources are too low and the body's stressing about that, it'll raise these stress hormones, and the adrenals will help out to kind of create these hormones that'll help the body function in that pinch. But if the body's in a pinch kind of all the time, and the adrenals are asked to make these stress hormones all the time to help the body function, eventually they can't keep up. They'll get fatigued and they can't keep doing that, and now you don't have that backup that the body was creating. And now you have no backup for fuel, and now you're kind of wiped out all the time. So this is really common, and we have a video that shows you how to test at home to see if you might be dealing with adrenal fatigue. So we'll put the link to that video in the description below. So you can see there's a wide variety of reasons that a person could be wiped out all the time and not really have any energy. And it's really common to see people dealing with more than one of these issues at once. So go ahead and look at your body chemistry and see what kind of jumps out. See if there's issues that are kind of screaming, well, yeah, that makes sense that I wouldn't be having any energy. So the free book or the course in the description below will help you understand how to look at your bio-individuality and see what's going on with you. It's not about finding the best remedy to have energy. It's about learning to work with your body instead of against it. So for now, if you are having any digestive issues, that can really be the priority, because how are you going to get fuel out of your food? So go ahead and jump over now and watch our video on understanding digestive troubles. I can't wait to hear about your results.